Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, you guys just had lunch here, so we're going to try to make this as energetic as possible, talk about some great things with the community, and get you guys energized about going back out there and doing some great things. So I'm going to start off with a small presentation. So I'm Brian Darby, Vice President, Strategic Technology Initiatives at QTS Data Centers. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been with QTS about 8 years. I work on connectivity. I lead the connectivity team and do a lot of the outside-inside plant, carrier relations, and fiber relations. But my passion is around data center workforce development. So over the past couple of years, we've really kind of taken the helm in Phoenix on working through workforce development initiatives, and I'm going to share with you some of the challenges we've had and some of the obstacles and some of the wins and successes, and we'll talk through that. But I really want this to be interactive. I want everyone to feel comfortable asking questions. We'll run the mic if we need to, but I want you to walk away feeling empowered, engaged, and with a plan of action to go out and support the communities. So whether you're an operator, you're an ecosystem partner, construction, whatever, wherever you sit, we need your help. We need everybody to help support the community engagements, get out, support our communities, help build programming, do the things that are needed within your community, and we're going to talk about that. So really want you guys to think about questions, and I'm going to leave some time at the end for that. So I'm going to walk you through a couple slides and how we think about things at QTS and how we've kind of created some real, I think, traction in the marketplace and the way we operate down in the Phoenix market. So starting off, we kind of look at the opportunity. I'm so used to walking around here. I got to stay steady at the podium here. So we started off really thinking about how do we work in a very large mega data center campus, right? QTS and Phoenix, we're actually building multiple campuses with multiple data centers. We'll have a total of about 27 data centers all total. So we have a really big operation we're running in Phoenix. So prior to that, we wanted to think through what do we need to do to engage the community and how we think about employment. So for us, it's really taken what I call the 5 C's approach, right? We've got to build a coalition. We can't do this alone. We've got to start working with our competition, our competitors, and start realizing that the data center competitors, hyperscalers, those aren't our real competition. Our real competition in Arizona is semiconductors. So we're competing for talent with semiconductors and manufacturing. So we need to think differently. So our coalition works with iMasons, AFCOM, 7x24, DCD. We work with EdgeCore, QTS, Stack, all the different operators, and then we work with all the different ecosystem partners and supporters, the contractors. We've got to start collaborating and working together. So first thing is coalition building. Secondly, we started building programming. We started to codify existing programs. You can't start building your own programs. If there's programs that are existing, work with the existing folks and organizations to start building onto those programs. We created a certificate program at the community college that already had 6 classes. We added 2 more classes, and we created a data center certificate program, only the 2nd in the country behind Northern Virginia Community College. So use your existing resources, figure out what's already working, don't recreate things, and build upon those things. Secondly, I'll say, thirdly is collaboration, right? Really being collaborative in how you work with the organizations. Community college and a lot of organizations get tired of us calling, asking for people, and never hearing from us again. It's got to be long-term strategic relationships. Our data centers are going to be there for the next 50 years. We have massive impacts on that community. We have to be more strategic. We have to really be more collaborative and less transactional. Communication highways. We have consistent conference calls with all the operators as well as the community college engagement folks, and we have consistent follow-up and conversations, meaning there's things they ask from us and things we provide and things we want from them. So you have to have clear communication highways. And lastly, I'll say you have to concentrate your efforts. One of the problems that we see in so many markets is too many people are going out trying to boil the ocean. They want to start working with data centers with 5th graders. Don't need 5th graders at this stage. We need people to focus energies around where the biggest bang for the buck. Remember, when people go out to these communities, you're volunteering. You don't have the bandwidth to start doing 25 different things. Concentrate your efforts, focus, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're successful. So that's how we think about community engagement. And then the 4 pillars are workforce development, community affairs, government affairs, and I call it the policy, and then financial obligations. Financial obligations is very much about giving, and that's something we need to do more of as a data center operators. We have to start contributing. Our data centers are too big, and we're putting and building too much in these communities without contributing back in a more proportionate way. I'll say it like that. We've got to start contributing more to the communities, and we're pushing our operators and their ecosystem partners to do that. But we're going to focus today on the first pillar, which is workforce development. So for us, one of the things we do is, and how we've engaged is the phases of our engagement, right? Really for us, really thinking about workforce. I started off with a market profile. We did some introductions. We do a discovery process, the strategy development, and then we did strategy execution. And then we built out a 10-year plan. And this is how we work things through at QTS and how we've started and how we built the program. So at the day of land acquisition is when we actually engage with the Economic Development Department. So when Jeff Green, who works at QTS, we acquired land in Avondale, he reached out to me on that Monday morning after they closed on a Thursday, and we engaged with the Economic Development Department, and they asked me, what are you guys gonna do? I said, here's what we're doing already, because we started ahead of time. So you have to start early, as soon as possible. If you're looking for a program to be up and operational in 3 years, you have to start now. If you're looking for it to be right now, you should have started 3 years ago. It takes time, and their priorities aren't always your priorities, and you have to build that relationship, and it takes time. So that's a little bit around how we've structured things in Phoenix from a QTS perspective, and we've implemented this, but the panel's gonna talk about it in detail and really amplify and give some great examples. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves to the panel. Daisy, why don't you go first?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daisy Sauls, and I'm a workforce development consultant and also the president and founder of a nonprofit called Path Hired. Path Hired focuses really on helping organizations connect with the existing workforce development ecosystem, and I'll explain a little bit about that a little bit later, but that includes anything from educational institutions, it includes nonprofits, it includes government, state and federal different programs that support workforce development. And so the main focus of this nonprofit is really to connect everyone, because there's so much going on, as Brian had mentioned, boiling the ocean. I think there is an ocean, and I think that there's so much really great work that's going on right now. It's really just about navigating that and knowing which partners are going to work best for your organization.
Thank you. Mara Irvin. I'm with Mara Jade Consulting, and I really do a little bit of everything, but focusing on site selection, design, and data center construction. My background, I guess it was 1999. I was a waitress going to school to be a journalist, and my table was an IT company, Corning. They brought me on board, and I stayed with them for 12 years. They cultivated my career, and fast forward, here I am, a business owner. So this is just something that I'm very passionate about. And to Brian's point around the construction timelines, when we go out and start working to site, going into rural areas where they don't know what a data center is, when we put together our package for what we want to do with the site, we put workforce development in there. The EDA loves to see that. And we don't just say it's just a message. This is really something that we need to bring. The community needs it. We need it. So we start really early in that process. So happy to be here and be part of this discussion. Thank you.
All right, so Ryan Groover, for the day job, I am the IT director of all data centers and low voltage cabling for Banner Health. We're a hospital system back out in the West, about 30 hospitals, about 300 other buildings, specialty clinics, et cetera. But for the purpose of this discussion, I am also the AFCOM chapter president of Phoenix. So my background is, traditional IT, fell into data center space, like most of us who come into the data center space, grow my knowledge through various certifications, et cetera. So, managing both the mechanical, electrical, and the IT side of the house. Been chapter president for Phoenix for the last 6.5 years, and really how I kind of got involved in this is, I think most of you in the room probably know Mark Moody, Potomac chapter. He came to us and said, hey, run a golf tournament and let's, raise some money for scholarships, and then it turned into, from scholarships, starting an internship program, and then I got introduced to this gentleman here, and that's where we ended up forming, along with, I know Kirk Bush is in the room, we ended up forming the Arizona Data Center Alliance, which now, as Brian said earlier, bringing the iMasons, AFCOM, and 7x24 together to really do good work in our communities, put education into our community college system, bring those kids into the internship program, give them scholarships, and then kind of help build that education to workforce pipeline. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Ryan, I'm going to let you keep the mic there and just talk a little bit. We just went through a high level as to what
Yes.
we're doing in Phoenix. Why don't you talk a little bit specifically how we made this work and some of the things you did?
Oh goodness! So how we made this work? Well, I mean, you do say it's really us as the secret sauce. So that's where him and I have been asked constantly. It's like, hey, can you provide the exact template and how this all works? And it's like we quite can't. So what we can do is we can give you really a high level, but at the end of the day, it's all of you in the room who makes this actually happen. You got to have passionate leaders. I don't know if I have any fellow AFCOM board members in the room, but as you know, this is an unpaid gig. We're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts, and we want to just do some actual good in our community. So, this is where, if you have an hour, if you have, a week or whatever, a month, we ask you to come in and volunteer. But it takes an army. You've got to be passionate about this. You've got to have the connections, and that's where, and that's where we've kind of built this. So, AFCOM started here in Phoenix with the golf tournament, raise money for scholarships. We started then turn that into internships. But then, I have one piece of it, and Brian comes along. He's got that connection into the community college system. So then we kind of bolt the pieces together. We bring someone new. Actually, we're looking at maybe doing some online training for the scholarship for our internship program. So again, it's just we meet the people, we start bolting on, and then again, we're not trying to boil the ocean here. We're just trying to really build a sustainable program. So start off with the Maricopa Community College Group. I'm talking to my old alma mater, UAT. Hey, maybe you start looking at building a couple classes for a data center program. We've got some inroads into ASU. So again, we're just kind of building it a little bit at a time. Versus I've sat on several calls for others across the country, and you're like, hey, let's tackle everything. It's like, no. Do not tackle everything all at once. You will fail. And I've seen every one of those fail, by the way. You've got to be pointed. You've got to really start digging into it. But again, it's at the end of the day, it's us people. It's us leaders who are actually passionate, and you've got to be able to you've got to want to put the work in. You can't just have all chiefs who throw out great ideas and then end a conference call with no takeaways. Again, I've seen it. It falls apart. Don't do that. You've got to be willing to actually put in the hard work. So, I mean, it's going to take all of us. This is not an individual problem. It's not a QTS problem or a banner problem or a DRT problem, et cetera. This is an all of us problem. We all know this. I mean, look around the room. We're all older, and we've all been in our careers for a long time, and we don't have the fresh blood coming in. So,
Awesome. Love that. Mara, why don't we turn to you? Talk a little bit about one of the things we emphasized was really getting started early and how important that is. Could you just help amplify that in some examples maybe as to what the benefits of that?
Yeah, so I'll just use just a little example. We were siting up for an edge site in a rural part of Virginia, and this community most of them don't know what a data center is, and they're not that far from Ashburn, but still they don't know what a data center is. So we came in to educate them. One, they need to know the differences, right? We're not going to come in here and build a large megawatt facility. This is a smaller edge site. But part of that package is they want this land being used for jobs, and we have to tie that back to jobs. And Daisy can talk about a little bit about this with the Data Center Coalition. They've created this map to say, even though there's not always direct jobs within the data center, it's an impactful, right? Because once you build up a skilled trade for use at the data center, these contractors can be used for other projects. You start to attract more data centers to the community, or just a tech hub. It doesn't have to be a data center. So that's how we positioned it with this local EDA, is we said, hey, let this kind of kickstart your tech. This could be a tech hub for you, and we're going to bring the expertise to help you build out your workforce. And that starts with, to their point, the curriculum. And Brian can probably talk a little bit about this because you shared this with me. They're getting the operators to help co-write this curriculum. It makes sense, right? If you want these students, once they graduate, to come in and operate in your data centers, why not be a part of that? So that's just a little bit that I've seen. And one thing I wanted to point back on with what he said that Brian really taught me too. Two things was consistency, because Brian said there was a few times they would have these weekly calls, or however often you were doing these calls, and it was one or two people showing up. Yeah. And it gets frustrating because you're like, should we table this and stop doing this? No, you just have to be consistent. Eventually you get more and more people to the table, and make sure that you have somebody representing each of those different parts of the ecosystem on the call. That cadence is super important. And then the second, and I know I'm changing subjects just a little bit, but the second part of that is utilizing your local resources. And I talked about this yesterday in another session. Don't bypass your community when you're building programs. Find out what resources you have in the community, meet with them, educate them on the data center ecosystem, because it doesn't just have to be within the data center, the ecosystem, and train them on how we can bring in more opportunities for students who may not even be thinking about college. I love that. I love getting the kids who don't think they have a future. There is a future, and we can bring them in and train them. And the other part of this is the retention. So you get these students into a data center, and I'm going to call out Ralph Nee from Fidelity. I've known him for a while. He did this really well with one of his employees. I was a female, and a woman coming into the industry, and you're surrounded by a bunch of men, it can be very intimidating. So we also want to talk about diversity while we're talking about this workforce development. So go into the schools, the low-income schools, pull these people out, and then when they get into the data center, what I saw Ralph do is he actually mentored these new employees. If they fail within the first year, 2 years, 3 years, it's not their fault, it's our fault as operators. So we need to talk about retention while we're talking about building the workforce. Because as women have left the industry for the same reasons, we need to do the same thing for the students that we're bringing into the industry.
That's great. No, I love that. Yeah, and the consistency part is so important. I remember we first started having calls, Ryan, and it would be just you, Kurt, and I on a call, and we just continued to be consistent and persistent about how we approached this and what we were going to do. And one of the things that we realized is that success brings more people out, right? As you start to see that, you start having some wins. When we started to get the certificate happening, we started to get more of the speaker series going. We started to get our high school program up and going. More people came out and more people got excited about what we're doing. And it's okay, you meet people where they are, right? Some people can only give 2 hours a month. Some people are more speakers. Some people want to do this. Some people want to do different things. Find out where you can leverage your skill sets and bring them along for the ride. But it took the consistency of this team to really just stay with it and stay the course. And now we speak and do things all over the country. We're trying to help build this program and extend this to other places. So I love that. Daisy, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things? We talked about students getting in and young folks, but maybe there's some middle career folks that you're working with, some federal employees. Talk about what your organization is doing and how you're bringing others into the data center space.
Sure. So, excuse me, I'm just getting over something. But so part of what I'm hearing from the community, and I'm lucky enough to be able to serve on a board for Virginia Career Works. They recently received an award from the governor of Virginia for the work that they're doing, specifically also, really meeting that call to action to support our federal workers that have been displaced from their jobs. So one of the things that they're looking for are different entryways to get into the industry and the ecosystem. And so a lot of times they may not have any of the skill sets that we might be directly looking for in a data center industry, but how can we leverage the skill sets that are already there to guide them into positions that we can, fill with this workforce? So that's one of the things that I've been hearing from sort of the community and from different organizations. We are also, is it okay if I talk a little bit about some of the challenges?
Yep.
One of the challenges that I do hear from the community is that they're hearing, a lot. There are certain organizations that will hear a lot about data center jobs and data center careers. And so they might want to build programs, or they might want to get involved and try to get people to get hired. The questions that I'm getting are, how do I get them hired? How do I get them an interview? Because by the time they're interviewing or they're applying for these positions, they may not be receiving a call back. And so to me, that says that we really need to take a step back and take a look at things like, how are we setting up our requirements for specific jobs? Thinking outside of the box in terms of, if you've got a higher level position that's opened up for a technician or an engineer, how do you promote, going back to what Mara was saying about retention is the new recruitment. So how do you promote from within a company so that you can make space for an entry-level position, which really actually kind of helps you, right? Because it helps you in terms of, it's going to be, more efficient in terms of starting salaries, and then you can start mentoring those folks that are coming in the door as well. So thinking outside of the box and being able to look at these things is something that we could also do with federal workers. You know, could we promote somebody that's already internal and make space for a federal worker, or make space for a graduating community college or high school, student that's graduating out of high school?
Yeah, that's great. Love that. And actually, Daisy, why don't we keep the mic with you? One of the things you and I talked about too is that you have to right-size programming and right-size for the organizations you're working with, right? And you had talked about certain programs for certain smaller maybe operators, and then how do you think about larger operators? So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I know I've had this conversation with a lot of people. You'd be surprised at how much it's not competition in terms of intentional competition in workforce development, but it does come across a little bit as a siloed sort of space. And I think the reason for that is that different organizations are going to have different needs. If you are a very large organization with a lot of funding, you might be able to support an internal training program where you can hire somebody literally off the street and say, come join us, we will train you to do this job. And so they have the trainers, they have a workforce development lead, they have all of the different resources to support this. But if you're a smaller organization and you don't have those resources, or you do not have that department to support that, that's not going to work for you. And so what are some of the ways that you can approach these things in terms of utilizing the resources that are already in your ecosystem? There's tons of programs that the state covers, and most of these states, if you look at if you just Google workforce development in the news, you're going to find that most of the governors in these states are really committed to getting folks into these high-paying careers that are, lacking talent. And so there's a lot of programs that are going to fund your internships for you. There are a lot of programs that are going to train for you if you just work with the state to let them know. And there's a lot of nonprofits that are doing the same thing. There's just so many different ways that you can approach this ecosystem. So I really just encourage everybody, like Mara said, to utilize those resources in that ecosystem that's right in front of you.
Awesome. Love that. So important. So Mara, why don't you take this one? One of the things we see is, and I think Ryan alluded to it, is that we oftentimes find people who reach out and say, I tried to do something, it didn't work. I tried to start a program, it didn't work, or people didn't follow. What are some of the things, problems that you see with folks who have gotten started, who are passionate about it, and want to get, maybe had some challenges? What are some of the things you're seeing that maybe are some of the challenges, and how we can help mitigate that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your advice on leveraging those local resources. I talked about this project yesterday, but we had an opportunity to just provide a dinner to low-income students that were coming to this community center in Sterling, and we found out while we were there and spending time with this group that there were a lot of needs. And while we're there understanding their needs, Laura Ware was with me, and she said, Mara, we should probably have this huge new space that they've built. Why don't we see if we could somehow incorporate some of our workforce development and just start with the basics. What's a data center? And there's a lot of high school students that are graduating that are coming through this center. I say all this to say we have talked about building our own community centers and our own tech labs to bring in workforce development for years in Loudoun County, and I think there's some initiatives already starting that everybody's familiar with. But what I'm seeing, and I'm new to Loudoun County, what I'm seeing is we have this Sterling Center. It's built, and we have already reaching all these students, and so when we've tried to get things to work by starting from scratch, it didn't work, but so why not leverage what we already have? And I know we're kind of just being redundant, repeating this, but get to know your community. If you're building a data center in some rural part of Wisconsin or Iowa or wherever you're going, go in, meet with the EDA, find out which schools, which local resources you have there, and you may not find a lot, but at least go in there and at least say, hey, we want to work with you. You have a vision, you have ideas, and they probably already have money and grants, and they're just trying to figure out how to use them, to Daisy's point. Yeah. So if we could come in there and actually be a catalyst for that and say, hey, we'll actually give you curriculum, we have programs, and we have places that we can host these apprenticeships and put these students to work, that's kind of where we see that momentum of things actually taking off and having more success.
Love that. Great. Yeah. Daisy?
I was going to echo what Mara was saying also because she reminded me of an example that we could use in terms of what this looks like when you reach out to the community. So for me, in my opinion, 3 of the organizations that you could be reaching out to from the very beginning is your economic development offices, reaching out to community colleges, and also reaching out to your workforce development centers. They are going to give you a lot of insight into what they can do for you and what exists. So for example, I know that Illinois has a program, I want to say it's the community college. They have funding for students who want to finish a course, or say they want to finish a specific career track. And one of the examples they gave me is the student didn't have transportation. And so they had funding to buy transportation for this student, so the student could get to and from work, to and from this internship, to and from school. There's money that's already there built into a lot of different programs. And if there isn't, maybe that's something that your organization can do, right? You could say, well, we would, give you an endowment to support transportation. If you reach out to economic development organization, for example, in Loudoun County, you'll find that our transportation department also gives a $50 credit for a month for free. Anybody can sign up for this. You do not have to show anything else. $50 a month for Metro. So they also have commuter buses. They will also help you figure out where the bus stops are so that you can get to and from places. These are a lot of things that people don't realize that exist, and you can offer them to your employees as extra benefits as well. So that's just some of the benefits that come from reaching out to your community and working with them, is really trying to figure out where are those challenges and where are the barriers for getting new talent in the door, and how do you solve for that? And they probably already have some solutions for you that you can implement in your plan.
That's great advice. Ryan, I know in Phoenix we've actually got scholarship money for our program. Why don't you talk a little bit about what AFCOM has done and how we're using that money?
Absolutely. So for those of you who have not been following Phoenix, so again, doing the golf tournaments each year. This year was our 4th year. So year 1 we raised 5,000, then went to 8. Then we went to 20. This year we broke 50. So that was. So again, it's a passion project for us. So what we're doing with that money is, the last several years really just been kind of direct scholarships to students within the Maricopa Community College group, and just again helping them along with their education. We do want to see these young professionals come into our industry. With the 50K this year, so we actually dedicated the first 10,000 of that, along with we got a private donor who pitched in another $2,500. So we are funding. It's the AIT 117, and what's the other one? AIT what?
Yeah, the power distribution class.
The power distribution class. So we are actually going to pay for, I think, 30 plus students to go through those classes on our dime. So that's the first batch of that money, and then I'm going to give out scholarships. We always do a big scholarship giveaway at the end of the summer. So we're going to give away the rest of that towards the end of the summer. So, but again, we're building the money, and we're bringing the entire community together. So I don't raise that 50K in a vacuum. That is literally all of you in the room. You're coming out, you're donating, you're helping us out, and then we're doing a lot of goodwill with that. So, I mean, hopefully now the bar's been raised even higher than I ever thought it would be. So maybe next year is going to be 70, something like that. We want to keep doing this. We want this to make the repeatable cycle and keep bringing these young professionals into the industry. So, but again, that takes all of you. So, and then I did want to echo what both of you said. Again, there are so many resources out there, and don't forget also the user groups. You've got the iMasons, AFCOM 724. You've got passionate people that have deep connections within the industry. If you don't have to reinvent the wheel, come to us. Every chapter has a little thing. And if you're feeling extra passionate, well, then do what we did, form an alliance of all 3 of them, and then you can do some really big good in your communities.
Yeah, no, that's great, Ryan. And then just to piggyback on that, one of the things I think is important too, and as operators, we've got to start doing and contributing more. And I think that's something that, we're doing well in these communities. We're building massive facilities. We've got to start contributing more. So putting back into the community college system for students, it just helps us as part of the ecosystem. So that's one of the things I'm really pushing and working with QTS on, about how do we get consistent funding for programs, but also working with other operators to see how we can continue to add to that. Again, if we work together, we can solve problems, right? Trying to do it myopically and just individually is not going to work. We've got to start doing things collectively. And that's kind of how we're taking that approach in Phoenix. So love that. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure we leave time for questions. So we'll go one more question here, but if you have questions, Kurt, if you can run the mic, that'd be great. Reach out, let us know. We're here to answer anything for you. But just kind of for the panel here, what are some of the final thoughts here around what you want to leave this community with? I want people to feel energized and understand that they can make an impact, because again, we just started, just us, right? It was, you know, we just got together individually and we started making an impact. So what would you want to leave this community with? Final thoughts, Ryan?
Again, my final thoughts is get involved. Please, please, please get involved. You know, again, this is a volunteer army. We need, it's, you know, again, as Brian said, it was Kirk, Brian and I who started this. And, you know, we did some good with 3, but now, I mean, our committees are up to like 30, 50 people. So it does take an army to make this thing actually happen. And now we're actually making bigger strides. So again, if you can donate an hour a month, if you can make connections, if you can go out to a school and speak and tell, and, you know, be passionate about our industry. I love, honestly, that's one of the best things we do. I'll be quick about this, but one of our first tours, again, shout out to H5 for doing this for us. You know, we brought in a group of kids, and again, they were so droopy-eyed and so tired, and like, what's a data center? And then by the time we got through the tour and we told them all about the jobs and the prospects and careers, they were just exhilarated. I mean, that was, honestly, that's definitely one of the highlights of doing this, is really, you know, turning them around, showing that there's a career. I mean, we're all here. We are career data center professionals. They can, and we can bring kids out of, you know, those economical disadvantaged situations and really help raise society. So again, my ask to all of you is get involved some way, somehow, whether it's volunteering, hosting, donating, whatever. Please jump in.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to amplify one thing you're saying. One of the things we did too is we created a speaker series for some of you who love to talk, and we all love to talk about our professions and what we do. So one of the things that really helped was that we found that some people weren't necessarily interested in, the meetings weren't their thing, and maybe they wanted to get engaged differently. And we created a speaker series at the community college and at the high school level. And there's some folks who don't talk much during meetings, but they get out in front of a microphone in front of kids and they just can't, they don't shut up, right? So they want to share their experiences. So find ways of meeting people where they are, figure out the solutions. But the high school program is something we do monthly. We've got people who are now starting to run that for us. We've got our college program that runs, and we communicate. Now we're going to start live casting that and doing a podcast. So find other avenues to meet students and people where they are, and find people that are interested in helping. And people say, I want to help. Okay, figure out what they're good at and find a lane for them to swim in, and you'll be surprised at what they can do to support you.
And follow Brian Darby on TikTok, right? Is that?
You do not want to do that.
No?
So.
Okay, do we really get to ask questions?
Let me go here real quick, and then we'll come to your question. I'm sorry. Go for it. I was teeing you up, but you're ready already. So.
But Janine got up and everything.
Go for it.
I do not have a TikTok, but that sounds interesting. So 2 things. I would just say find one person in your community. And I don't know, I would say if you're going to start somewhere to find out how to get started with local resources, would you say the EDA, or who would you say they should reach out to? Like if they had just one start, if they left today to go back home and kind of start and find their Daisy in their community, where would they start? Economic development, yeah. So reach out, and when you reach out, you just say, hey, and if you want a slide from Arizona, we'll send it to you. We would like to create something like this in our community. Who and where should I get started? Who's already doing some similar things? That's your takeaway from today. Go back, and if you don't know them, reach out to your local EDA, find out who you can work with. I do want to highlight one little thing, get creative. Lauren and Susan are here from the Charlotte area. There's an organization called Eliminate the Digital Divide, E2D. They started this organization with it was his daughter. She was in school and she realized other kids didn't all have laptops. They created an organization. They take laptops from the community and that have been decommissioned. They train the students to wipe them, and then they return these laptops to low-income families and students. These students who've learned how to wipe computers are taking classes and curriculum, and we're tying them up with apprenticeships. Get creative. It's a super way to get kids plugged into technology.
That's a great story. Love that.
So I have 3 takeaways, and I think that they're fairly simple. So one of them is to visit centerofyourdigitalworld.com. That is run by the Data Center Coalition, and so that is full of resources to help you go to schools. So when you go and speak to children at schools, there's a PowerPoint presentation. It goes over what a data center is, what kinds of data centers. It also goes over the jobs, how much they pay typically, what's the range of what they pay, as well as what are some of the routes that they can take, some of the career paths that they can take, whether it's 4-year education or right out of high school. So it's a super helpful PowerPoint presentation. I would, with that, just say, go to your local high schools and see if there's a career day and go speak to the students. The second thing that I would do is, if part of what I'm hearing from the community is that and from, honestly, from just the industry in general, there's so much going on and people don't know where to find this information. And so there's a lot of different places, plug into Nomad Futurists, plug into iMasons, let them know what, programs you know about, so that they can put it in their website. You can also mark September 17th as National Workforce Development Day. And so what I've done through Path Hired is we've created a page where you can submit different events that you're doing and different programs that you have so that it can get out to the community. And so we'll be sharing that information as well. And then the third thing I would do is really just, connect with your local, community college, or connect with your, economic development organizations and just start asking questions. And then ask them to look at your, have an honest conversation with them about what it looks like to hire someone. And I would have your hiring managers a part of this conversation, because a lot of times you can have the leaders, the VPs, and the hiring managers may be a little bit more hesitant because this is mission critical. If something goes down, it's them that are having to answer the questions as to why this didn't function correctly, right? So bring in your hiring managers into the conversation and have this conversation, have an honest discussion about what it takes to get in the door, and see if there's any way that you can compromise on what that looks like. And see if there's any way that you can promote people, or that you can mentor people, or or if they can even support you by training people before they even get to the door for you to interview them. So those are 3 things that I think are relatively easy to do.
Awesome. Love that. That's great advice. Hold on to the mic because we're going to go to questions. I think we got one person already.
Hey there, my name is Jeannie Ann Clark from the Virginia Community College System. So I'm about to make Mara's challenge to you all to network and find someone really easy, because there's 4 of us here from the Virginia Community College System. The college system in Virginia has 23 community colleges throughout the state. I'm from the best one, Laurel Ridge Community College, which is just 50 miles west of here. And we started out with full electrical apprenticeship programs when we first met Daisy in the DCC. But since then, we've added on 3 levels of fiber, a data center operations program, and on September 15th, in partnership with Dominion Energy Virginia, we're launching a full-scale power line worker program to be followed up by a substation tech program. All of these credentialed programs in Virginia are tuition-free to Virginia residents and employees. What we need from you all as industry, because we got the tuition part figured out, the capacity to build these programs, they're expensive. Let me tell you what it takes to build a fiber program. It's a lot of money, a power line program. But even more easily, if you can let us borrow your employees for 5 hours a week to teach some of our courses. Some of our biggest challenges is we want folks from industry teaching industry, and it's really hard to get a hold of your workforce just to give us 5 hours a week to teach a class 1 evening a week. So if you can help me help you, find us. Jeannie Ann Clark, Laurel Ridge, my team's here, put your hands up. We are here to support you. We are fascinated by this industry, and we're really happy you're here, and we're here to help you.
Why isn't she on the panel?
Yeah, I know. That was...
Who did this panel?
Yeah, we should have...
And we got to get a photo up
here.
You guys all, seriously, at the stage after the thing for a picture.
Any other questions?
No, seriously, because the community college link is everything, and it makes the biggest difference.
Kirk, we have one on the front row. Yeah, we'd love a photo op with you if you can after.
So, hi Brian, hi panel. Don Obermeyer from CESO, and Brian, you've heard this before. I'm a big advocate of the ACE Mentor program. So, in the architecture, construction, engineering field, we go into high schools around the country, 75 affiliates, many major urban areas. We mentor students through the course of the school year on what it means to be in the architecture, construction, engineering field. We provide scholarships. Matter of fact, tomorrow, to borrow from Chrissy Hind, I go back to Ohio tomorrow and give away $30,000 in scholarships to students going into our fields. Some of those are going for electrical engineering, for mechanical engineering, architectural design, engineering design, et cetera. So if anybody wants to know more about ACE Mentor, please find me up here.
Any questions?
ACE is a great program. We got a big cluster at ASU with ACE.
So my name's Bridget Brion. I'm with BlackRock Resources. We're a staffing agency, and this is somewhat of a new market. We're heavy in the energy space and staffing and construction. Finding this talent, obviously, is something that we're all very concerned of. How do we get more information for Phoenix, and how can I share this other than with the economic development groups within the state of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia? That's kind of my region that I'm in. That I'm like focused on right now, but can you share more of the material? I'm involved with the Ohio Natural Energy Institute.
Yeah,
and-
if you'll reach out to one of us
Yeah.
after,
Yeah.
we'll get your contact information.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually are doing, we spoke last year at the AI and Data Center event last year in Ohio, and there's other things we're doing with them as well, so we'd love to connect. Yeah, awesome. Any other questions?
How are you finding your employees? I'm curious. Like, are there anyone here that's been in hiring, recruiting, and where are you finding new talent? Anyone?
They're not.
Are you just stealing talent from each other?
Yeah, I suspect that's what it is.
That is a good point. I actually was going to bring that up earlier. Somebody said something about competing with other industries. Also, watch when industrial plants shut down or when they're exiting. That's a great place to reach out to their HR to say, hey, we might have a home for them. We might need to get them upskilled and bring them over to the data center industry. But typically, they're forced to kind of help these folks find new jobs. So.
Yeah, yeah, and also it's knowing your market too, right? So for Phoenix, we have Intel and we have TSMC, which is a big semiconductor factory. So for us, those are the two big, behemoths that are pulling from the community college and resources and stuff. So for us, we have to join forces as a data center to help with that and help support our industry to help because they've got more funding than we do. They're more established than we are. We've only been around for about 25 years as an industry. They've been around a lot longer. They're much bigger for us. So it's really knowing your market, knowing your competition, and being able to align yourself accordingly with building programs and knowing how to get talent. So it's not easy.
Yeah, actually, one thing I would like to ask the crowd, and you don't have to answer me right now. Definitely, come find me on the side, ping me on LinkedIn, something like that. We have the internship program in Phoenix. It's we get some decent outcome on that one, but I'd obviously like to see it a lot more. So, if ever you can let me know what's holding you back from jumping into an internship program. I mean, is it a funding thing? Is it a you need a roadmap thing? Is it policies with your HR department and they just need some help understanding? But again, I don't want to take up the Q&A time, but if any of you want to give me some insight, I would love that. So again, ping me on the side on that one.
How do we get started? Like, how would they what would be your advice if they wanted to start an internship program? How would they do that?
Gotcha. So again, get an internship program. It's just a couple things for me, getting out to the schools, telling them about what we do, coming up with just a basic, high level of what a student would do, paying them. Let's dump the whole unpaid internship thing. That's a load. Let's just say that. So, be willing to, put some money on the table for that. So again, that's very, very high level. But if there's anything that's holding you back, I would love to know it. But I know we have a question. So go ahead, Girk.
Thank you all for the panel discussion. My name's Hilary. I know you mentioned some programs within different age ranges, students and people in secondary school and primary school, but are there any organizations that help throughout the whole process from that grade 11 or so to when they're an undergraduate to when they graduate, to also placing them and giving them work experience within the practical and the academic side as well?
There are actually quite a few organizations that support anything from, honestly, from K-12 all the way through, if it's community college, to four-year education. I'd be happy to chat with you a little bit more and forward some of those programs. I'll just add, I think, one of your questions earlier was talking about different approaches, right? There's no one size fits all for an organization. And so for some organizations, it may make sense for them. They may be really passionate about getting high schoolers, educated about data centers because they may have a built-in program, that hires them right, or gives them the opportunity right out of high school. Where you might have other organizations that are looking for that four-year degree, and all of these programs exist. One of the things that I think, my question is, how many people here are working in operations in a data center, just out of curiosity? Okay. How many of you are hiring managers? And how many of you would feel comfortable hiring somebody without any experience whatsoever, that doesn't even know what a data center is? That number decreased.
Attitude and attitude. That's what I want.
And that's honest, right? Yeah, and that's an honest, and there's a reason for that, right? Kudos to those of you that are have created different programs to feel more comfortable about this. But the way I explain this to people is, like, literally, if the stock market goes down for a second, we're in a lot of trouble. And if you're going to put somebody who doesn't know how to handle that situation, then you've got to answer that question. And so my ask would be, what would it take? Just think about that. What would it take for you to feel comfortable to bring in someone that doesn't know anything about a data center? One of the programs, and I hope it's okay if I share.
Sure,
One of the programs that I was really lucky to start with a group of people in the data center that I used to work in, did just that. And we worked with the hiring managers and asked that question: what would it take for you to feel comfortable? And we ended up having a stay-at-home mom. We had an 18-wheel truck driver, a bank teller, and these folks were all driving from areas that we heard, oh, nobody's ever going to drive from that area for this job. And they did. And the program was a 12-week training program that this company started. By week 6, they were fighting over the 18-wheel truck driver. And they said, we will never hire an engineer from this program. And they offered her an engineering program. They were fighting to make room for her because that's how well she showed up during that training opportunity. And then the same thing happened with the stay-at-home mom. It was 8 weeks, and they were fighting over her because they said, wow, she just picks up on things super quickly. It's really just about taking that first step and just allowing people to show up and see how they show up, because they'll learn. People will learn, and they'll take opportunities if you just give it to them, right? So just think outside of the box is what I would say, one of the things to take home.
I'm going to chime in here for just a second on the internship program, because Ryan was asked, well, exactly what do we do to start an internship program? And we kind of navigated it as we went, but some of us had a little experience. In the semiconductor industry, we've been doing internships since the beginning of time. And in every engineering department, you got 3 empty cubicles or 4 empty cubicles, and there's an infrastructure already put in place. There's already things with HR, and these are where our summer interns are going to be. We have to create all that in the data center space. Most of the data center operators don't have those spaces for kids. They don't have spaces for and job descriptions on what an intern would or wouldn't do. The other reason we decided to turn around and pay them, we pay the interns, not the companies. A couple of companies stepped up and paid, like Cyrus paid. But we had to put everything in place to do it. And I think we can build that template for other people to use, and we'll put that on a Data Center Alliance site soon. So the issue in internships really is the data center industry doesn't really have the infrastructure internally and the spots, right, for interns. And I think that'll change over time.
Love that.
So I'm going to put somebody on the spot. Boris, do you mind if I pick on you? You're sitting up in front. So he has this book bag, and it says, I'm here to break shit. So you show kids that they get to have a job and make a lot of money and carry a bag around that says that. I am curious, because my eyes are bad. Are you a systems engineer? Do you mind telling us how you got your training, or where you started, or how you started? Here. Do you mind?
Boris is a legend
Okay.
in Arizona.
I started out in the military, moved over to IT systems when I got out, and went back to the Air Force as a contractor. One night I was pretty drunk. I applied for a job, and Ryan called me and hired me.
True story.
I did not know this story.
Yeah. You may want to cut his mic off. No, I'm kidding.
But you were sober during the interview.
You were sober in the interview.
Okay, good. He hesitated, Ryan. He hesitated.
I know.
How long have you been in the industry now?
I've been with Banner Health for 7 years now.
Nice.
Data center side, probably about 3.
Okay.
Nice. That's great. Great
Nice.
story. That's a great story.
I love it. Thank you.
Back to real quick. So the speaker series, like we're doing at the community colleges, using that too to create a pipeline for interns and students. I kind of wasn't joking about the TikTok because we've talked about needing younger kids to attract the kids.
Yeah.
Tell the Neum story. Perfect story.
The what story?
Neum. You're a rock
Oh,
star.
that's right. Yeah. So we've actually, and this is going off script a little bit, but it's really a good story in the sense of really trying to meet students where they were, meeting young people where they are, and trying to find ways to connect with them. So one of the things that's really became apparent was when I go out to speak, I come from an industry perspective, and I'm an older person. I'm in my 50s. So for us, we started to bring people that were much younger. So we found some Microsoft Data Center Academy folks that were really bright, and Naeem is one of those folks who really was just an amazing Microsoft Data Center technician at 24 years old, making great money, and he came out and spoke. He had a ton of emotional intelligence and really connected with students, and it really resonated. So just doing different things to find ways to connect with people and connect with students, and it's just been amazing. So now in the speaker series, we do it once a month at the college level, and I typically bring him or someone else out, but we've got just an army of young people who are in the data centers that love talking about it and are really the best ambassadors for what we're trying to accomplish, and it's worked out really well for us. So, if you don't feel like you're the person to speak, find other people who can, and you can create something. So be creative, find ways of doing something and getting involved, as everyone here has said, and just leverage the resources you have, the relationships you have, and see what you can accomplish. So I know we're about out of time here, so any one more question if you have one? There we go.
Right over here, hang on.
Yep, and then we'll call
Old
it
guy's
good.
kind of slow getting the mic over.
Thanks, guys. So my name is Alex Hayes. I work for LVI Associates, and we're a recruitment specialist. So I wanted to answer the question I think somebody asked at the back about how do you find talent and where is the talent? And one of the interesting things I wanted to say, and it's been a common theme of this talk, is being a little bit more flexible and giving people a bit of a chance. So the amount of people that don't have data center experience but want to get into data centers across all levels is insane. But what I've noticed from you guys in the data center industry is you want people incredibly quickly, but you want them to have the data center experience. But my clients who are probably maybe a little bit more successful in building successful teams than others are the ones who are a bit more open to people who have skills in maybe other industries or skills that are a little bit outside the box and still interviewing them, right? I think there's too much of, I have a resume and I'm tick boxing particular skills and rejecting people who are probably amazing. So the talent is there. They don't necessarily have specific data center experience, but there are plenty of asset classes that are similar. So my advice would be to, give people a bit more of a chance. Certainly at interview level, right? I'm not saying you have to hire them, but you can at least have conversations.
Great, love that. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thank you to the panel.